yeah, for this twice delayed stream. Apologies for that. Looks like some people are watching. We'll see if people, if things are looking and sounding good, please let me know in the chat. Today's stream is about Gadgetbahns and also European planning. There's a lot of good discussion to happen. I'm excited for it, and yeah, I guess I'm gonna wait a few minutes as always before I get started. Let people sort of funnel in, and yeah, should be a good stream. Hope everyone is having a good, probably Sunday in the afternoon / evening, unless you're in Australia or Asia, in which case that is not the case. But yeah, let's take a look here. Okay, that looks good to me. So yeah, I'll start the proper stream in 3 to 4 minutes once more people enter, because I usually like to press pause and wait until people kind of funnel in before I start talking about the main topics. As always, if you're not already, please consider subscribing to my 2 blogs, which I've linked in the description to this stream. And also bookmark the next stream. Just kidding, I haven't booked a next stream. This may be the last live stream I do for a while. I don't have another one planned right now. I have been planning them ahead, but I have been very tired, and it has been a very chaotic time, which is why I canceled this live stream / rescheduled it a bunch of times. Yeah, it's definitely been an interesting time. Having a young kid is extremely hectic and crazy, and so that's an experience as always. And yeah, we're gonna start the main topic in just a couple minutes here. So yeah, I think this might be the last live stream, at least for a while, as I was saying, since I don't have one planned, and I might just kind of take a break in August and not do any. I guess we will see. Lots of people in the chat. Yeah, if audio is coming through quiet, I'm talking fairly loud. I'm not going to start yelling, so I recommend turning up the volume. I'll look at a few things in the chat, and then I'm gonna get into it. Have you heard about the "What is this feeling" from Wicked parody created by TransLink for their Mark V trains? Yeah, I watched that video. It's nice. I do kind of think, though, I don't know, I wish TransLink would focus on expanding the system more, and less on video. But I guess I do appreciate that they do more video and social media engagement than basically any agency in North America. It feels kind of like Europe in that way, and the new trains are really nice. It's a bit weird, though. When they launched them, it was like all these politicians showed up. Everyone's got to kind of, say, it's us, we did this, but it's really you, public, because it's your tax dollars that paid for this. And also, as much as the Mark V trains are nice, they're mostly just the exact same as the Mark III trains, with some specific improvements. Nicer screens, a different seating layout, a different paint job, 5 cars long. It's a bit to like, okay, it was weird seeing everyone talk about it like, oh my goodness, this is the most revolutionary thing. It's like, it's the same train that you already had, but just sort of like a half generation step forward. So that's a bit interesting. You should do a Stockholm rail network video covering all the tram and commuter lines. Well, I'm not doing videos anymore, as I've said many times. Yeah. So no, unlikely that I'll do that. Honestly, the metro is kind of the highlight. The Pendeltåg, I guess, is cool, but yeah, it's sort of not that big of a network, honestly. Stockholm has like a bunch of minor lines, like the Saltsjöbanan and the narrow gauge line, whose name escapes me. It's cool, but yeah, Stockholm is like kind of what I feel like Montreal should be. You know, Montreal should aspire to Stockholm levels of transit. Someone says, why, when making videos, did you rarely cover systems in the Eastern Bloc like Budapest? Well, I did cover Budapest. And Dublin, I feel like I covered fairly recently. Because I have a problem with the Eastern Bloc. No, I mean, I just... honestly, a lot of those systems feel pretty similar to one another. You know, pretty heavily undergrounded. Obviously, I did cover Budapest, but a lot of them legitimately do feel quite similar to one another. It's not to say that they aren't in the rest, but because it was all like influenced by this single sort of planning ideology in the Eastern Bloc, those systems end up feeling very similar, whereas like Madrid, Berlin, Paris, London all feel very different. So just out of interest, I think some people are very obsessed with, you know, Central and Eastern European public transit, and I don't really fully get it. There's some good stuff for sure, but it's not, I don't think it's better than what Paris does or what Berlin does, for example. Berlin, maybe someone would be like, well, half of Berlin. Anyways, I think some people are like really obsessed with it, and I think sometimes people have this attitude where if something doesn't get discussed, they sort of think, oh, it's not being discussed and it's really good. And I'm not saying that, you know, like the Moscow Metro is legitimately a very good system. I have said before that if I were going to make more videos, I would do one on the Moscow Metro because it is a very good system. But people are like, oh, you know, I don't know, various other Eastern European cities, the system is so good. And it's like, it's okay. It's similar to a lot of other systems around the world. I don't think it has some unique element that makes it so much better than everything else. So that's my thinking. Okay, I'm going to respond to these messages in the chat. This is a very special stream because it's a birthday stream. It's actually my birthday. The reason I didn't stream on Friday was my kid was very sick. And so I was like, oh, it'd be kind of fun to casually stream in the afternoon on Sunday following birthday because it's sort of a relaxed day. And so that's my thing today. Have you watched Adam Something? I've watched, I think, one video a long time ago. It's not really transit stuff. The coolest thing about the Mark V is getting rid of the Mark Is and increasing the total capacity. I agree. I really hope that someone does something cool with a Mark I train. There's that one restaurant in Melbourne where they have like a train on the roof. That would be cool. There's a lot of cities that have done cool stuff with old rolling stock. Isn't London has a place where they park some old tube trains on like a disconnected portion of viaduct? It would be cool if something nice happened with the Mark Is. I wish Canada had a great centralized transportation museum because it would be clear that you should send some Mark Is there. They're like kind of one of the most iconic trains in Canadian history. Public institutions doing regular YouTube promotional videos, it seems like a thing, definitely. And I don't think it's a bad thing, but sometimes you're like Stuttgart 21, you're like, maybe you should focus less on videos. But no, the videos are good too. Topics of Japanese, we will talk about Japanese Gadgetbahns, so don't worry. Thank you for the birthday wishes, folks. That's very nice. Here in Finland, we're now considering changing to standard gauge. Yeah, I saw that. That would be very cool. Yeah, if that ended up happening. Kind of a huge pain, but it would be cool. And it would... I think I saw they were talking about, like in the distant future, doing a rail link from Finland to like kind of where Stockholm is, crossing a bunch of islands, and that looked pretty cool. And there's also talk all the time of the link to Tallinn, and it's like if you could, I think in Ticket to Ride Europe there is like an imagined route that does that, but if you could have both a southern link and a western link, first of all, it'd be really cool because now you could take a train from Tallinn to Stockholm. That's awesome. But yeah, all around it would be very cool. UK government is doing bad stuff about HS2 again. Yeah, I mean, the thing I was telling some friends who I was discussing this with is that, like, while it is frustrating, HS2 has just been a really poorly executed project and poorly planned as well. So while it's frustrating, it's sort of like, well, who can really be surprised that this was the outcome? There's a person in suburban Toronto who has restored a train car in his basement. Very interesting. Okay, so I think I got through all of the chat. Oh, a couple of comments about. Okay, I do want to respond to these. HS2 is only going to Birmingham, which makes it a complete waste of money for such a short distance. The issue is it was very expensive, irrespective. HS2 is way too expensive, even if it was going to Manchester. It's going to Birmingham is definitely a big cutback, but it's still some trains like the classic compatible high-speed trains they're going to operate will go back onto the conventional network, and so there's still improvement, not as much improvement. Economically, Helsinki Tallinn makes no sense. I mean, I find this kind of thing a bit silly. It's like, well, you kind of build the infrastructure you want for the economy you want. If you connect Helsinki and Tallinn, well, the economies might boom in ways you might not expect. It's a very expensive project, obviously. Have you got a chance to check out the new park in Toronto's Portlands? Not yet. I would really like to, though. That being said, I think one of the major problems with it has already been highlighted, which is it's kind of hard to get to from almost anywhere, which shows kind of the poor planning, poor transportation planning, etc. HS2 has been problematic since long before it didn't go to Leeds. It's been problematic since they decided to build basically a high-speed rail subway that's mostly in tunnels through the countryside. Okay, so Gadgetbahns. Since a bunch of people have come since I started, thank you for coming to the stream. If you're not already, consider subscribing to my blogs where I post regular RMTransit style content. Links are in the description of this stream. One of them is a personal development blog, so it's not transit related, but it's kind of a passion project. Next Metro is the transit related one. Yes, and this is actually going to be the last stream for quite a while, so enjoy. It would make sense if HS1 and HS2 were connected. I mentioned that in one of my videos. Well, it doesn't really have to do with regulations. I don't think anyone mentioned regulation. It's these are design decisions. There's no regulation that says you must be in tunnels for the whole route. They didn't even put a new bike share station near the park's entrance, but they did put parking there. That's crazy. I didn't realize what kind of parking is it. It's not like a parking lot, is it? It's just like street parking. Anyways, Japan, Gadgetbahns. Main topic of today's post. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to talk about the fact that what people call Gadgetbahns, what I call Gadgetbahns, which are Gadgetbahns, and they are things that you shouldn't build. You shouldn't build a monorail. You shouldn't build all of these weird things. In the case of Japan, they might be slightly less Gadgetbahn-y. I think it's because, and here's the thing. The reason Gadgetbahns don't make sense is because rail technology is very developed. You do not need to reinvent rail technology. Monorails, they don't do anything that regular trains can't do for the most part. The guideway is a bit smaller, and that's advantageous. You can have a very narrow right of way. There's some benefits, but generally speaking, they're not recommended. But in the Japanese context, where it's sort of domestic industries like Hitachi Monorail, there is an argument to be made that's a kind of an industrial policy thing. They do maintain and operate these systems in the long term. If you look at the yawn. If you look at the if you look at like the Tokyo monorail, like the one to Haneda Airport, they've upgraded it over time. You know, they've added modern rolling stock, etc. So it's not really, it doesn't have the same problems traditional Gadgetbahns have in other places. And of course, Japan is really interesting because like Hitachi monorail in Japan is like barely a Gadgetbahn. There's a bunch of systems. I'm trying to think, but there's like the Tama monorail and the Tokyo monorail. I think there might be one more Hitachi monorail in the Tokyo area. I want to say there's I think the Nippon Toneri liner, but I think that's a crystal mover. Another Japanese, you can call it a Gadgetbahn, but crystal mover is more like an APM, automated people mover technology. And I wouldn't really call it a Gadgetbahn because, a lot of airports and stuff use it, and it's obviously beneficial to them. And then obviously other cities in Japan have various technologies. So the Hitachi monorail is not really. Where you get into Gadgetbahn territory more is like the Shonan monorail and the Chiba monorail, like the suspended monorails. There's like one. I want to say it's a Tokyu line or it's a Keikyu line that's like really short. That's just a totally. The Kitakyushu monorail. There's one Tokyu line I want to say that operates this very strange Gadgetbahn. I feel like it's called like the Lion line or something like that. But then there's all kinds of other stuff. There's like the new shuttle, but I don't think the new shuttle is a unique technology. I think it's like crystal mover. There is crystal mover everywhere in Japan. Honestly, it's also like barely a Gadgetbahn because they build that stuff everywhere. In the case of Tokyo, I mean, they have the Nippon Toneri liner, and the new shuttle, I believe, the Eureka Mome line. Like, they have a lot of them. So I do think, I think it's interesting to look at how these sort of Gadgetbahn systems in Japan, they lose a lot of the elements of Gadgetbahns because they're so widely deployed. They're basically, bog standard technology that they're deploying. Gonna reply to that there. Which I find is very interesting. And I mean, I do think the Leo liner, there you go. CDLTO says it's basically a theme park shuttle. Interesting. So it goes to a theme park. I think, I don't know, it's interesting. And when a Gadgetbahn is embedded in a location where it's not like the only rail system, like I'm trying to think of an example, and I'm sure someone can come up with one. But there's certain cities where, oh my goodness, I'm really tired. There are certain cities where like a monorail is the primary form of public transport, and it's not. You're tempted to say like Chongqing or something, but that is not. The monorail there is not the primary form, at least anymore. But basically, a Gadgetbahn, if it is the main public transport link, feels bad. Whereas if it's just a sort of tertiary line that serves a particular district or something, or a bunch of businesses that helped to fund it, then you sort of go like, oh, it's not so bad. It certainly adds a lot of color, a lot of intrigue to these rail systems when they have all these weird lines that use weird technologies, and I guess what you could say as well is that the disadvantage of a Gadgetbahn is that it has certain design features that make it specialized for one particular problem, and that doesn't make sense for wide deployment. But if you're doing it in this sort of one-off, hey, we got to connect this random island to this train station, then it actually could start to be useful in the sort of micro sense of each project. Gonna just look at the chat here. Old Oak Common Opinions. It's not a very good transport hub because the overground isn't directly integrated with it. Like, it feels like sort of a classic case of it's got lines around it, but they're not all very connected, which creates a lot of problems for creating an actual hub where you don't have to walk a ton. There's a parking lot. Oh, that's so depressing. Since bi-articulated trolleys exist, in what situations is LRT still viable? I don't use the term LRT. I talked about this in my blog, on my blog. I don't think it replaces trams, but it's just sort of like part of the niche of trams, like a small tram that doesn't operate all that frequently. It's overlaps with this technology. The most stupid Gadgetbahn is the Chinese straddle bus. Well, it's not a gadget. It's not even a real thing, so I don't know if I would even mention it. I'm doing a beta trial for the Montreal for tickets on the Chrono app. Yeah, I just wish they would allow tap to pay like every other city. Docklands light railway tends to screech more than monorail. It's more pleasant to be around the latter. It might be slightly more pleasant to be around, but there's a huge cost that you have to pay for, using a non-standard technology. I don't think the UK has any monorails, actually. Canada doesn't. RM and RMTransit stands for Radical Mother. Not sure what that is. Japan has a bunch of abandoned Gadgetbahns, which really says something. Himeji, Nagoya, and others used to have monorails, which were later abandoned. Yeah, I mean, this is the risk when you build a Gadgetbahn. It's more expensive to maintain. It seems like basically how it works is you get these, is they sell you the technology cheaper up front, and then you get locked into using, the one or two companies that can provide rolling stock for it, and that's how they make their money. It's basically kind of like a phone plan. It's very bad for governments and public agencies to get involved in this kind of thing. France does have a lot of Gadgetbahns. I would say less than Japan, though. No, you shouldn't build a Gadgetbahn. I'm just saying that if you were to, you would want to look at the particular circumstances. Translore, yeah, it is the kind of major bad French Gadgetbahn. Calgary's LRT isn't really an LRT. It's a Stadtbahn. I wouldn't call it. There's Stadtbahns and then there's trams. Calgary has a Stadtbahn. Toronto Zoo, not really a monorail. Seattle's monorail was profitable. I don't know. People say things, they use the word profitable to describe a transportation system, and usually it isn't profitable, or they're not including some factor. The Seattle monorail, I don't know, it's kind of more of a tourist attraction. It's not all that fast, and it doesn't go to a whole lot of places. Tap to pay Montreal, getting there slowly but surely. I would accept that if it was 10 years ago, but now it just feels like, okay, Ottawa has this now. It's weird that Montreal doesn't. Thank you for the super chat. Pantomas PG, which just says Inspector Gadget. Right? Isn't that how the song goes? What's more important, frequency or speed? It depends on the service, right? CDLTO is mentioning a bunch of different dead Japanese monorails. Were these all Hitachi monorails? I'd be curious to know. What is Crown number 1? Not clear at all what that means. Transit is not meant to be profitable, exactly. World has adopted tap to pay. India went with, well, there you go. There's your answer. Is this a good idea? World went with, probably not a good idea. Oakland Airport Connector, not a monorail at all. It's a cable car. Because, okay, I'm gonna have to start. Timeout, because don't want spam in the chat. Anyways, yeah, I don't know. I find it very interesting. Japan has a lot of weird Gadgetbahns. A lot of them clearly have died. But at the same time, I guess in Japan in general, you can't be too surprised about transport projects dying because of depopulation. I mean, the crazy thing is even cities that aren't Tokyo are, I think some of them are shrinking. And so it's sort of like, well, you can kind of expect that this is probably the future. I think some projects in Japan already were built were a little dubious, and if cities start shrinking, it's like dubious plus a shrinking population is not going to be great. Oh, what is the crown number 1? It means, yes, the people who have commented lots on a stream. How do you feel about Brazil's gondolas to favelas? I think they're a decent solution. You say Brazil's, but they're in a lot of Latin American countries, and other cities around the world are building sort of urban gondolas these days. Notably, well, Taipei has one, but it's not really an urban gondola. It's more for seeing a tourist site up on a mountain. But Paris is building one. Toulouse built a very cool one, which is a 3S. I was thinking, what is the name? It's a 3-cable cable car, which is called a 3S gondola. It's a pretty interesting system. That's similar to what TransLink wants to build in Vancouver to Simon Fraser University. Martin just stumbled onto the live stream. Well, it's nice to have you here. Silly thought. Hydrofoils are to ferries as monorails are to trains. Yeah, I guess that's not the worst comparison ever. I don't know that much about hydrofoils. I did ride on one, a public transport hydrofoil once, though. So, Japan also definitely did have the cash to throw at Gadgetbahns back then. So the arguments being made against Gadgetbahns are based mostly on factors not inherent to the technologies themselves. Well, not exactly, because the thing is, by being non-standard, you are inherently, you're probably not using steel wheels. You're not doing a lot of the standard things, and that is where the technology has been kind of trusted, has been sort of tested. So I wouldn't argue it's based on things that aren't inherent to the technology themselves. Though a big part is the standardization, availability, and monopolization. Someone's mentioning the Toronto bus lanes, which have been, for now, mostly killed, which is sad. Hopefully those ones get brought back. I say the Toronto bus lanes that have been killed. There are bus lanes in Toronto which were not killed. There were some new ones which were whittled down quite a bit. Urban gondolas are not Gadgetbahns. Yep, I don't think anyone suggested they were. One Gadgetbahn is the Shanghai Maglev. So this is a place where I would debate a bit. It's a Gadgetbahn if it sort of reinvents the wheel with technology that doesn't sort of prove itself as having enough of an advantage over the old technology. It's like a monorail. Can't really do anything that a regular train can't. But a Maglev, I wouldn't consider a Gadgetbahn. That's not to say that there wouldn't be a Maglev Gadgetbahn. And I guess you could say that some of the lower speed, like Limino and some, I think, Beijing or some other Chinese cities have some low speed Maglevs, and those are Gadgetbahns. But if you're talking about the intercity Maglevs, I wouldn't say they're Gadgetbahns because they're enabling something that otherwise wasn't possible, which is like 600, 500 kilometer per hour surface transportation that isn't testing a high-speed train. So, yeah, I wouldn't say those are Gadgetbahns. But they're sort of upcoming technologies that might develop, might not. It's sort of TBD. Any upcoming partnership videos on the channel? Electric cars are not Gadgetbahns, no. Can we consider, partnership videos? Yes, there are a few. A few more. There's not a ton more, but there's about 4 or 5 more. Very excited for them. I really like doing this, helping to promote other people's channels, help grow people's audiences, help, have more people doing public transportation stuff on YouTube. I obviously really enjoy doing it, and yeah, so I think growing that is advantageous. It's good for everyone. Just sending a message here. Here we go. Shanghai maglev is only point-to-point, so it's really just an elaborate airport connector for sure. The fact that it never got extended to the city center is not great. And also the trains are not that big, so if it did, would have been a bit limited. Obviously, we were saved by the Berlin Wall coming down, which saw the mother of all Gadgetbahns being ripped out in good riddance, yes. Incheon Airport did have a maglev. I remember saying they closed it. I'm not sure why, but I assume the ridership was not great. Hey everyone, the Paris gondola that will soon open is a single cable one with 105 10-seat cabins on opening. Yep. Yeah. The Toulouse gondola is the 3S, that's what I said. Well, you say the failed Transrapid, but the Transrapid got built in Shanghai. It just didn't take off in Germany. And to be fair, Germany still doesn't have very good high-speed rail, so maybe they should have built the Transrapid. Yeah. Okay, that's it for Gadgetbahn talk. I want to talk about the second topic I set aside. If you're just coming to this special birthday stream, welcome. I like to say that if you're not already subscribed to my blogs, I have a link in the description of the stream. It's probably going to be my last stream for quite a while, so enjoy it while you can. What else was I going to say? Yeah, subscribe to those blogs. One of them is transit related. One of them is a sort of personal project on personal development. I think it's interesting, but know that one of them is transit, one of them is not transit. Don't accidentally subscribe to the other one if you're not interested in the topic. Maybe go read a few articles first. Yeah. I don't agree. I don't think that maglevs are better for Germany than traditional high-speed rail. I'm just pointing out that traditional high-speed rail hasn't been built very, very widely in Germany. At least not in like there is a bunch of high-speed lines, but they don't come together for a very coherent network. And a lot of the earlier lines made some weird design decisions, like designed to be used for freight, which is weird. So yeah, what is that next topic that I was mentioning? A sort of obsession with European city planning in North America. I don't think it's a bad thing, but I do think it is often unhelpful. There's a lot of people who just sort of are obsessed with the idea that Toronto, New York, Los Angeles, the places that they need to learn from are Amsterdam. Amsterdam's great. A lot of stuff to learn from, legitimately. But it's worth remembering that Amsterdam, I mean, even compared to Toronto, the smallest of the three cities I just mentioned, Amsterdam is a fraction of the size. And it's kind of crazy, but Toronto was smaller than Amsterdam at one point, and Amsterdam's grown extremely slowly, whereas Toronto has grown rather quickly. And I think that that's often missing from conversations, is that European cities, since cars have existed, generally have not grown very fast. And if they had grown very fast, as cities in North America have, they probably would be more car-oriented. So there's this sort of, backwards-looking justification where it's like, our cities were always designed to be walkable, which is obviously, walkable, urbanist, car light. Obviously not true if you know anything about history. European cities did a lot of damage to themselves in the era of the car. It was just that the amount of damage they could do, like with the inner cities of North American cities, was limited because there just was not the space. So you couldn't just build giant, super wide streets everywhere because there just wasn't the space in the old cities. So I think it's an important discussion that doesn't really happen. Is a sort of like, it's good to compare, and there's a lot of things to learn. Look at Berlin's trams. The trams are great. But that doesn't mean that you can wholesale look at the entire city and say, hey, we really should have a city like that. The conditions were just totally different. Chicken Bomb, which is a great name, is saying Vienna only recently hit its 1920s population again, which is crazy. The country that Amsterdam is in is more like an overgrown city than a country. It's an interesting idea. I don't know if I would quite say that, but it is very interesting, the Randstad region and the way it's all interconnected by rail and the high-quality rail service. The Netherlands I often think, has kind of the best rail system in Europe alongside Switzerland. Switzerland's better, but Netherlands is really good. The thing that surprised me recently was I was looking at the Netherlands Spoorwegen, monthly ride or I think daily ridership maybe, and it was only like 1 million a day, which is crazy to me because I would have thought it would be much higher. I guess maybe more like 2 million a day, because it's not a tiny country, and the Randstad has like probably 10, 15 million people. No, probably at 15 because the Netherlands is only like 18, but probably like 12 million people, and so it kind of blew my mind that only like 10% of them are using NS on a given day. Haven't heard your take on Australian city planning. I've talked a lot about Australian cities. I think I have more videos on Australian cities than most places and most YouTube channels. So, yeah, a lot of talking. But I think Australian cities are really good, but they're just super suburban. More so than even a place like Toronto or Los Angeles. They're just super low density. Our trams suck, says the Berliner, and it's like, yeah, okay, well, come to Toronto and then you can see a tram that sucks, and then go to see the new modern Obama-era streetcars in the US and then see a tram that sucks. Switzerland is better, way better. Hey, well, I don't know. I think there's definitely many elements that are better, but Switzerland does not do some of the things that the Netherlands does that are quite good. No high-speed rail in Switzerland. Not that the Netherlands high-speed rail has gone particularly well, but also the frequencies are often not as good. Do you consider Chengdu Line 18 the first real German-style S-Bahn in China, with a city center tunnel after both S3 and S11 are finished? I guess potentially. I don't know if they're going to through a run, though, or are they just going to go out from one side? I'm not that familiar. I know Line 18 is the Line 1 parallel express line, but yeah, I'm not sure about S1 and S3 and S11. The Randstad only has a population of 8 million. That's surprising. That's surprising that it's so balanced between non-Randstad and Randstad. Do you think the Ontario line is a good price? I've talked about this before. No, definitely not. It's like the most expensive subway ever built. It's not going to be 35. It's supposed to be 27 billion, but it's still very expensive. Obama-era trams, like in Boston? No. When someone says Obama-era trams, that's referring to like the Washington, D.C. streetcar, the Portland streetcar, the Tucson street, all of these like weird, the Detroit streetcar. The Netherlands does have high-speed rail. The HSL Zoud. It's not, it doesn't continue all the way through Belgium, but it's definitely high-speed within the Netherlands. Amsterdam trams are moving backwards, but it does feel like we're in for some long-term surprising expansions. No, I always thought it was good. I saw some ICE trains in the Netherlands. The Miles video on the DC streetcar was hilarious. It is very slow, and I'm pretty sure it's being removed, which was kind of the thing that so many people were saying might happen if you built crappy streetcars. And it's the funniest thing about it is that people always say, streetcars are permanent, and that's the reason they're good, is that rails send a sense of permanence, and it's like DC built a new streetcar, and it's like, what, a decade, 15 years later? Probably less than that, probably like a decade, and they're already talking about removing it. I live in an extremely suburban town. Makes for nearly impossible public transport. No, I mean, Toronto suburbs, I always like to talk about, have great public transport. Australian suburbs have good rail service. Is the Detroit people mover Gadgetbahn? Yeah, definitely. Yes, the ICE trains in the Netherlands, I think, mostly don't use HSL Zoud, though. They, because they're going to, like, the Rhine-Ruhr, and the HSL goes, like, southwest to Belgium. Is San Diego in that lot? I don't think it's in. No, I think San Diego's is like a old light rail line that they sort of repurposed. They don't go 320 like they do in France. I thought they did. I know that some of them are like 200 kph limited, but I'm pretty sure HSL Zoud has like a pretty high top speed. I could be wrong, but yeah. I thought it was saying nay. 215 is HSR, but it's just 250 is HSR. Eurostar can do 300. There you go. 300 is very high, very much high-speed rail. Currently excited for the opening of the City Rail link in my city, Auckland. Hoping it finally shows our decision makers that transit is good. I think the decision makers in Auckland already get that. I mean, Auckland's system is pretty good for an Anglo city of the size of Auckland. So, yeah, I wouldn't be so negative about it. I just do think it will be a much better system with the City Rail link because it'll be able to increase service frequency and kind of the weirdness of the kind of looping out to the east will be fixed in the network because you have a more direct path to Britomart. So I think it's definitely a very good project. Yeah. Take this. In the Netherlands, they don't do 320. Sure, but they do 300. So 300 is definitely high speed. Like the bullet train in Japan on the Tokaido line does like 270 and it's high speed. Yeah, NS themselves does only 200 because they don't have rolling stock capable of higher speeds. Yeah. Just kind of watching the chat here. But to kind of close the thread on the European city planning and obsession with it, max 285. There you go. 270 and 285 within 15 kilometers per hour. It's very close. Thales Eurostar merger has changed the branding to all the Eurostar. So, yeah. I want good trains in Germany. I don't get them. Well, there's good trains from Berlin to like Hamburg and good local trains. The S-Bahn is great. I don't agree with the people who say that everything over 200 kilometers per hour is high-speed rail. I think you do have to get to like, I think 250 is probably a good baseline. Anyways, as I was saying, I think the sort of Eurocentric view is not really helpful, especially to cities that grew a lot or that have all kinds of different constraints that didn't apply to European cities. So while I think that there's a lot we can learn from Europe, I don't think we should pretend that we can wholesale be like Europe in other parts of the world because we just have very different constraints. That's all I wanted to say. Not having a long-standing rail culture is another big problem, obviously. 250 is the EU standard, yeah, I'm pretty sure. Let me see. Belgium has the best train system I've ever experienced. I don't know if I would concur with that. What about Asia, where cities have grown fast in recent decades? Well, as I said, you can't apply everything. So I think I'm kind of wrapping up now. So if people have any questions or anything in the chat, it's going to be my last stream for quite some time. Thank you, everyone, for coming. I'll talk with the chat a bit, and then that'll be it for today. Yeah, Belgium. Belgium is famously not that good for its trains. Using Australian lessons learned as opposed to European. Yeah, I mean, for like the suburban rail, it's okay. Otherwise, it's super suburban. So it's kind of just like North America in a lot of ways. In some ways, like the bus service is worse than in Canada. So like I always like to tell people that Australian transit's like good suburban rail, Canadian transit's good urban rail and buses. Looking at this. Constructing airports with rail connections before opening should be the norm. Well, there aren't that many airports getting constructed these days. Where do you think the first non-Northeast Corridor high-speed airline will be in North America? Well, it seems like it's probably going to be Brightline West, in between nowhere and nowhere, basically. Sorry, San or Rancho Cucamonga residents. Thank you, CLTO, for the kind message. Belgium has a lot of pre-metro. Well, mostly just in Brussels. For LA, why do you suggest 5-segment city trains rather than the automated light metro proposed for the X line? I mean, that would be fine. You can automate either, right? The 5-car city train, that could be automated. There's no reason you can't do that. I just suggest it because LA already has a lot more of that, so there's kind of more economies of scale to build more of that stuff. Absolutely disagree that the idea is that Belgium's local trains would somehow be bad. I had only good experiences during my time there. That might be your experience, but it's definitely not the reputation Belgium's trains have, and I think most people who spend a lot of time in Europe would suggest that they're definitely not at the top of the pack. Do you think there should be an international passenger train from Mexico to Canada going through the U.S.? Probably not. It's just not clear entirely what the market it would be serving would be, and 2 border crossings sounds like a logistical nightmare. Plus, no one's talking about how do we better connect to the U.S. right now. Do you think Carney's government will actually do high-speed rail in the... Not just Brussels, no, but the other ones, as you said, are also terrible. Do you think Carney's government will do the high-speed rail? I think there's a chance, but I'm not super excited about the plan. Happy birthday and many more healthy years to you and your family. Thank you so much. The thing is that you have to build airports isolated because of the noise. Okay. Good morning from the suburbs of Tokyo. I haven't owned my car yet. Owned my car. Owned a car? No? Hey, I'm jealous. Thoughts on the recent Not Just Bikes video on Toronto streetcars, if you've seen it. I watched it like weeks ago, because I sort of helped make it, I guess. I helped review it, at least. There's a credit to me in the description. You know, it's not... When someone else makes a video, it's never going to be the video you made, right? But I think it's a good video, and I think it highlights so many important points, and obviously, Not Just Bikes is great in terms of the reach. I don't want to say he has, because it sounds weird to say Not Just Bikes as a person, whereas I don't know that he wants his name used. Anyways, it's a good video, very good. It covers like so many important issues, and it's just like it's such an important topic. Like, I'm happy that someone with reach, I wish it was a Toronto politician, but Not Just Bikes is finally the person to come in and say Toronto streetcars suck and they should be good like European trams. So it's a great video, is what I'm saying. And I was happy to review it. Yeah, it's like 40 minutes long, which is pretty epic. So you're 26 now. No, I'm 27 years old. In my senior old age. Belgium is extensive and cheap, but really run down in some places. Yep. Amsterdam's metro is not great. Yep. Yeah, they built pre-metro to save money, but ended up building metro 10 years later. Sounds like Sydney with the Epping to Chatswood rail link. Smoosh smoosh on the nose to baby transit. Not Just Bikes get too political. Well, hard not to. Yeah, he has his flaws, but the message is clear. We all have our flaws, right? And the content is solid. Yeah. Still young. Don't feel young. Feel tired and drained. Kid is so exhausting, but so nice. Yeah. Sounds young. Feels old. I got super sick the last few days. So I had terrible medical situation with my kid on Friday. And then yesterday I woke up feeling terrible. Today I also felt kind of terrible. So it's been kind of a rough time lately. And I mean, okay, I said this is the last stream, so I feel like I should kind of like send it off if I don't end up doing another stream. I was thinking of coming back to do YouTube, and then I thought, no, you know what? I'm going to do the blogs. It's tempting to go back to the past and say, hey, like I used to do this, I could do it again, and forget, why you stopped doing it in the first place. And I stopped doing YouTube because I wanted to spend time with my family, and because it's a grind, and because it's, a treadmill that I didn't want to be on. And so I'm very happy I stopped. I'm very happy with the blogs. They're going well. I enjoy writing about all kinds of different places. It is basically doing RMTransit, but in written form. Less people consume it because it's not a video. You can't just put it on and, casually listen to it. And that limits the audience, but I think it means the audience is more engaged. So there's pluses and minuses. Zonman says, happy birthday. Hope to see one more live stream before the next one. Before next one? Oh, yeah. Okay. Probably. What do you think about the proposed night train? Supposed to serve everyone east of Denver, Colorado. Not optimistic about rail in that country. Where do you think self-driving cars will help transit rather than hurt? Suburban areas, maybe? If they don't... Yeah, maybe. Suburban automated bus. Opinion on using industrial sidings for passenger rail like the Trillium Line. Well, if it goes near stuff, then it's not a problem. But if it's just in industrial areas, then probably not a great idea. Greetings from Seattle. Thanks for making videos on sound transit. Thank you. At least you're in Canada where you have a shot of meaningful healthcare. Yeah, no, healthcare here is great. I've never had I have only good things to say about the Canadian healthcare system from my personal experiences with it. I do appreciate when people read my stuff. Yeah, I don't... The thing is, if it's like 5 years from now, I don't think I'll go do YouTube again. I think I'll want to be doing something else, to move forward and see where things go. Most unique transit city in your opinion? Probably Chongqing with its giant monorail system. All right, I think that's it for today. Thanks everyone for coming. I'm going to go crash because I'm very tired. Yeah, I appreciate you all coming out. Appreciate all the support over the years. All the showing up and watching the videos. It's meant a lot. Thanks.